Seguro rồi.
Oh, good, you can just.
And don't have to do.
Where are you originally from?
Originally from Wayland, Massachusetts.
You really are.
And I'm Sam Strife. I guess I'm the old man on the committee. Not the age. 20 years plus.
Yeah.
Plus.
You win.
Pretty close. Sam and I
Could
both
take a
kind of
badge of your choice up there.
been together on this.
Sam's
Yeah.
also been the vice chair and through multiple chairs and
Oh, I'm on the CPC also.
also on the CPC.
Great, nice to meet you.
We vote as a block, Sam. No.
Tell us about yourself and why you're interested in the position of conservation agent in our humble little town.
Sure. Nice to meet you all, and thanks for having me today at your meeting and for the chance to meet you all and talk about the position. As you know, I'm Abby McCarthy, and I have a background in earth sciences in both geology and hydrology. I'm interested in the conservation agent position for this town because I want to do conservation and land management work that has a public service component, such as working for a town. And I saw that my experiences working for the Park Service, managing land in Yellowstone, and also my master's in earth science with a focus on hydrology and water resources, so those experiences could be useful to your town in terms of having someone with a scientific conservation background to do both the fieldwork component and also to provide any services that the town needs related to regulations for your wetlands, your stormwater management, erosion control, and other land conservation programs.
Very good. Yes, so I would agree that, you know, your background in our sciences, and especially hydrology, you know, kind of lend itself towards some of the stuff that we're focused on. And the things that we're focused on are, almost exclusively around wetlands protection. So there's the component of the Wetlands Protection Act that's very, it's central on our focus, the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act. Describe your familiarity with that particular piece of legislation.
Sure. The Wetlands Protection Act is something that we talked about with Howie and Brent during my meeting with them. I don't have a professional background working in the Wetlands Protection Act, but we had also discussed that this position could potentially offer the chance to take an MACC wetlands course or to do other professional development that would be more specific to the Massachusetts wetland laws, so that I could also have the opportunity to learn more specific skills at the start of this position or as I go through it.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Howard has, represented some books here that probably, I don't know, what's that thing right there, that field guide? Yeah. All this stuff comes from the, and it hasn't, you have another one as well, come from those sources.
Wetlands buffer zone.
So, resources like this, very useful from that organization. I guess, one of the things that Brent kind of, and I mentioned this at our last interview, one of the things that I found kind of surprisingly interesting and I needed to have it hit over my head a couple of times by Brent is that, that this is a regulatory board, that we're enforcing laws, that very often, that is an adversarial position to a lot of people, and it's not all warm and fuzzy, and that can be uncomfortable. Are you prepared for something like that? I mean, you have to kind of put your mean face on sometimes and be firm and authoritative, and not everyone is comfortable in that role. So I guess I'd put that to you, like how do you feel about that?
Yes, I feel comfortable taking on a role where it's necessary to be firm, to enforce policies, and also to work with the public. I have experience working and interacting with the public from working for the Park Service and working on public land. And I also have experience with teaching 4 semesters of earth science at a university. So I also have experience with directing groups of people, as well as making conservation science and earth science material understandable to someone who is not a scientist or who doesn't have a background in this area. And I have experience using common language to explain ideas that can be complex in this area so that we can also communicate well with the public and with anyone who we're working with.
Do you have can you give an example of a time when you've had to, be the authority, be
The bad cop.
the bad cop, as it were, yeah.
Sure. So when I worked with the Park Service and I was a part of a team that collected field data in hydrothermal areas. If any of you have visited Yellowstone or seen the TV series about it, you might know that there's geysers and hot springs that draw a lot of public crowds and attention. And so sometimes when we were working at particularly high-profile locations, one member of our team would be assigned just to talk with people and tell them what we were doing so that it wouldn't disrupt or be disturbing for the person who was collecting the data. And that also included being very firm with people about policies such as, it might sound simple, but something like no photographs of people off the boardwalk in a zone where the public can't access. We ask the public not to take photos of the employees there so that people don't see hashtag standing next to Biscuit Geyser or something and want to go off the boardwalk. So one person has to be pretty strict and say, hey, excuse me, sir, sorry, but could you please delete that photograph? We're not allowed to take photographs here. Or in some cases saying, excuse me, could you make sure that you stay on the boardwalk when you're talking to us, making sure people aren't going off into the hot spring geyser zone, and being firm with people about the requirements while we're also doing scientific work and collecting data sets for monitoring the park's land and features.
In that particular instance or that situation, did you ever run into somebody that was really a jerk?
At the Park Service, no, most people are nice.
Usually New York license plates. from my experience.
No.
Yellowstone.
You're showing your main background, or your main.
Sure, I'm showing my one visit to Yellowstone where my wife and I were just counting the seconds towards that New York guy who was getting closer and closer to the bison and like, he's not, I could tell he's not happy, like
Don't pet
you
the
get too
bison
close
or
to their
something.
comfort zone,
Yeah.
and that's it. 2,000 pounds of mad bull is not
Should be
what's-
common sense, you would
It
think.
should be, but again, like I said, New York license plate. He may have just been from Manhattan. He was just used to Pomeranians or something.
Well, okay, I have had to tell people don't pet the bison. That's the thing I've had to say on my job. But I would say most people who visited Yellowstone were well behaved. It was actually when I was teaching at the university that I had to practice more being firm with people who are breaking rules. Like in situations, maybe a student, I had some students who were cheating, who I had to have conversations with them about following university policies. And I had, students who would maybe show up at the end of the semester without having done any of the semester's work and want to make up all of the labs. And I would have to explain to them the policies and give people, that's more where my practice in saying no to people comes from teaching, I would say, than from the Park Service work.
Yeah, I was an adjunct professor for 3 semesters, and I had the same student do that 3 semesters in a row. I was like, no, I don't know what you didn't get the first 2 times. Yeah. Oh, sorry. So anyway, yeah, I think that those kind of questions are my big concerns. You have to be able to be firm. You have to be able to be comfortable in confident in what you're saying and presenting, because you'll represent the commission and the law, and you have to also be as very well demonstrated in our previous meeting, I don't know if you had a chance to watch that or saw it at all, but kind of what's the word? You know, you have to be a solution provider too. Like when it seems impassable, you have to kind of be creative in coming up with, well, why don't we try it this way? Which is, Brent gave a perfect example of that at our last meeting, which we had a boardwalk that was put in not according to spec, and we want it to be according to spec. And how do we get there? We have concerns because we spec'd it out this way. You know, you hire a contractor to paint your house white, they paint it blue, that's a problem, so we gotta fix it.
In
And
fact, that's a good example where this situation, and we've had this happen a couple times, where Brent has been able to, where we're getting to a situation where you can see we're starting to escalate.
yeah,
Okay, in
And-
other words, we have to deal with the rules that we have. The person that's sitting over there needs to do something, or needs something, or wants something to happen. And these two things are like an iceberg and the Titanic coming together.
how can you like compromise or maybe you don't compromise.
Or how do you come up with something that lets the person know that, guess what, the iceberg is coming? Because in the beginning, they're not seeing the iceberg. So have
So-
you ever had to deal with situations where you think you got somebody that just
Yeah.
doesn't see the situation, and how can you work with them to bring them around? So have you ever had a situation like that?
Okay, so kind of like a person who maybe either didn't want to follow a policy or something where there was a disagreement or a conflict and sort of
Yeah.
like mediating with that?
Well, like to give you the specific example from the last meeting, this boardwalk was supposed to be put in according to spec. It was not put in according to spec. They made some decisions out in the field that were good decisions.
They thought,
But they were not according to, they did not result in the boardwalk being put in according to spec. They came before us and we say, look, well, we want it in the way we said it would, we want it. And the options were very expensive for them or us not getting what we spec'd.
I'm gonna clarify a little bit here too. Number one, they have my cell number. We had interacted before, but they never called the office.
you didn't call to ask.
And it was a modular boardwalk, and they took all the modules and they made it straight instead of putting one of the modules in the center for a viewing platform, so that my example was so bird watchers can set up their tripod on their scopes and not be blocking people trying. So they put the module that was supposed to go there, they put it on the end because they believed that they needed to go a little further to get on firmer ground, even though they admitted when we were talking to them that in fact your feet would not get wet if you had stepped off the end of the boardwalk where it was supposed to be. They just decided to make this field change, but they never contacted anybody.
Yeah.
So we were calling them out on that.
And so in the meeting, Brent made the very reasonable suggestion that, hey, okay, if cost is a problem, is there a cheaper solution? Like use the modules to put the
Get what we want.
viewing platform in place like we said we wanted. How can we get this crossing done cheaper? And that was very amenable to that with a pressure treated lumber solution. So that's an example of where, as Howie said, we've got the invincible force in a movable object, and we have to come to a resolution because we only have 15 minutes on the agenda. So
Well, we also have a permit that says thou shalt build it this way. and
Right.
They did not.
So, like that's, you may not have a lot of experience with that, but I guess that's my question is do you have you had any kind of situations like that, or how would you approach something like that. And I don't expect you to know exactly, you know, that pressure treated lumber would be a particular solution or whatever, but I don't know. Give me your thoughts.
Sure. So it sounds like in this situation, there's some conflict, and you said that you want to try to create solutions with the person while also still following the rules
Yeah.
that are in play, and you don't want to compromise the policy. You also want to talk with the person in a way that's non-controversial, meaning that you help them find a solution that can still fit the town policy without, I guess, speaking to them in any way that would be aggravating or unkind. We just find a kind way to help them make the solution, since they're coming to the town asking the commission to help them follow the policy, which they're required to do.
Yeah.
Let me get in there just for a second here.
Sure.
I think I've been doing this for about 3 years or so. Okay. What I've noticed from the group that I stand back and watch is that there has never been the hammer dropped on anyone. It's always been a negotiation between an engineer, the end customer. We come to an agreement, and last week, Dan, because I didn't quite hear everything that you said, but we also had the one where the water pipe was left out
Yeah.
in the road, and everything else was in one spot, and the water pipe was over here, and it should have been over here. And so that was negotiated, and from what I walked away from, it would have been possible if the wrong plants were planted, and if it was a tree, the tree root could have gotten into the water pipe over time. Wasn't gonna happen immediately, but 10, 20, 30 years down the road, there could have been a problem. So Brent is what I term, in the years that I was in business, hard but fair. Okay, he's got rules and regulations, but he'll work with you. And I think that's that's the kind of person that we're all that way, and that's the kind of person we're looking at. It's hard but fair.
To a certain degree.
Huh?
To a certain degree, but there's a point, I
We
think,
have to hold the line.
we have to hold the
We
line.
gotta hold the line.
And
There have been-
violations and, violators.
Absolutely.
And we've had those where we finally just say, hey, you know what? That's it. We tried to show you what, try to give you some alternatives. And if they don't wanna take them.
Then
You know,
we're not left with
Can I ask you
a
a question, which I didn't ask last time? I noticed, so you were brought up in Wayland, and you went to Pittsburgh College in Claremont.
Yes, I did.
Okay, how did you find that college, and how was your experience? I mean, this is you living here on the East Coast with all these colleges and stuff like that, and all of a sudden you find this college. And by the way, I've been to Claremont, so I know a little bit about Claremont, so help me out here. What took you from the confines of New England, and any experiences that you think you could share with us that you think learnings that made you a person that could make you better for this job?
Sure. They had a very excellent geology program that I was able to take all of my classes at Pomona College through their inter-college exchange. So I got to learn all different kinds of data analysis skills, as well as field geology, like identifying rocks and minerals and geologic formations on outdoor geology trips, and then analyzing the data in a lab and also on the computer, like working with tools in earth science like ArcGIS, writing computer codes, and analyzing all different kinds of data. I also got to do a senior thesis on groundwater analysis that was tied into a year-long internship with the Kansas Geological Survey, where I got to learn more skills with working with large data sets and working with land, learning about how water was used and how that related to the fluctuations in the groundwater levels. And then I just kept building more data analysis and science skills during my master's. So for this job, I bring that knowledge and experience of having done work with both groundwater and surface water data sets, as well as general environmental data, such as combining it with data of the climate with temperature and evapotranspiration, and just working with a wide variety of environmental data sets and knowledge that I bring as well.
And then what brought you back to Syracuse?
I mostly went there because I was interested in doing a master's thesis that was related to hydrology. So then I got to do a 2-year-long master's with a thesis about flooding specifically.
What did you think of the area around Syracuse, upstate New York?
Yeah, the area there, it has very nice nature for walking around. It's not the safest small city to live.
I was wondering, do you have any, I'll say, opinion of the geology?
Of the geology around Syracuse, you could go up to a waterfall and it would be very fast to find some cool fossils, like some remnants of old ancient oceans. You could just find like sea critters in any rock formation, which is pretty cool.
I went to school out there, and I had geology, very basic, and the professor said, you're in one of the best areas in the country to study geology because it's all around you out here. Anyway, if I can step aside from that type of questioning, your resume looks as if it was, and I understand I'm old, so things get changed in terminology, but I'll say your resume. It kind of ends at the end of college, at the end of grad school, and there's a whole year missing.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's been going on? If you
Sure.
don't mind my asking.
So after grad school, I did a season with the Park Service for right away after
Yeah.
grad school. I finished the season and then I applied for a work visa to go to Australia. And I lived in Australia last year.
Oh,
Did you work there? You're saying work?
I did work that was unrelated to earth
Oh.
science. I just traveled and did interesting life experiences. I also traveled for 4 months in Asia, around Indonesia, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, and Japan, just to like have that life experience. It was the most incredible year.
Where was your home base in Australia? Which city?
Well, I was in Tasmania for a couple months. I was in Sydney. I traveled up the whole east coast of the country, so.
Yeah. No, I lived in Melbourne
Yeah.
for 4
Oh,
years.
great. We'll have to
Spent a
talk
lot of
about
time in
that.
Australia.
Yeah.
So in the time that since we last talked, one of my questions was, obviously there was a gap between the knowledge that you have of, your educational knowledge and whatever, and the things that you've done versus, and I think we realized there was a gap between that and what it was gonna take to do this job. Have you thought anything more about how you would close that gap?
About how I would gain any skills necessary.
To really
to
be
do the
competent,
job?
to be competent in the job. Yes, exactly.
Sure. So one thing that we brought up was taking the MACC wetlands course to learn more specifically about the wetlands policy. And it sounds like this job requires a lot of people skills, which is something that can be practiced, but not always taught. And I feel that I am assertive with talking to people and that I'm able to be strict as necessary. I think that working with the public is enjoyable to me and that I'm able to work well with a lot of different types of personalities. I'm able to speak to people in a way that is non-provocative or not creating unnecessary controversy, which is very important for a role like this where we want to have good relationships with the town members. So in terms of what else I could do to close the skill set, I think that I gained a lot of the necessary skills when I was working for the Park Service in terms of learning about land management generally. So it's just a question of how to apply it to a specific town in Massachusetts. And I believe that the support of the commission, the interest that I take in the area as a resident of Massachusetts and someone who's from here, that I'll be able to gain any necessary skills to really succeed at the job. And in conclusion, a girl's got to start somewhere.
I suppose so, yep.
I've got a question. So
Yeah.
also, one of the requirements of this role is a lot of field reconnaissance and sometimes in remote, wet,
Yeah.
uninhabited areas. I see, from working in the Park Service. You have had experience working in the field. And how would you be able to relate map reading skills in a remote area? Do you have any experience with that, or could you?
Yes.
Okay.
I have very extensive experience working in remote areas in the Park Service. Since I have experience, navigating 8 miles off trail, carrying heavy equipment to sites in bear country, in highly inclement weather, turning from sun to hail to snow and rain and sun again, all in the same day. I think that walking around the town of
300
Rowley
feet off the road's not a problem.
will be okay. I'm familiar with using maps, both a Garmin GPS device and also a phone, apps to navigate off roads or off trails to GPS points. I'm familiar with collecting GPS points and inputting them into an iPad. I'm familiar extensively doing research with ArcGIS, which is a very important mapping tool for earth sciences, as well as even more advanced skills such as working with time series of satellite data sets. So a lot of the skills with maps that I have, we won't even touch on here, in addition to the geologic map making that standard geology undergrad coursework has taught me as well.
Well, Brent can teach you some time series stuff, I'm sure. You can. Right? No, all right, never mind. That's not really a big part of this role. Anyway, I want to just build on that a little bit, though. So you're, how did I want to build on it? You're in the field. Let's say you got the job. You're in the field. You have a geology background. What sort of, or at least partially, right? Soils and wetland soils are a big part of identifying or delineating wetlands and knowing where the resource areas are. Brent has, he's out there confirming the extent of a delineated wetland. We have wetland professionals that will delineate a wetland as part of a development, and Brent will go out and confirm that. Do you have any field experience with soils from your times in the parks, or anything in your background suggest familiarity with soil profiles?
My experience is more with minerals than specifically with soil. So identifying minerals, knowledge of rocks and rock formations. I'm sure that transferring that knowledge to soils will not be a difficult transition. It's something that I could pick up easily.
Yeah, Brent, I don't know, do you want to offer some insight on the importance of soil familiarity with, in the role?
The regulatory requirements for delineating wetlands are founded on two main parameters or criteria that you utilize in the field. A soil auger to establish where the soil transition is. You do what's called a transect along what you believe is the edge of bordering vegetated wetlands. You do 10 feet high and 10 feet low to demonstrate that in fact you have pretty much flagged and chosen where you believe the transition is from bordering vegetated wetlands to upland or buffer zone to that. The second parameter or criteria is doing a survey of the vegetation and establishing specific types of plants that are categorized through wetlands manual at the EPA and the federal folks utilize that assigns a categorization to certain plant species. And so some are deemed obligate, that they only occur in vegetated wetlands. Others are identified as facultative with a graduation from facultative wet, facultative dry, and then upland. And you do a survey of the components of the plants in the three different layers to establish what the dominant plant species are in that community. In other words, you've got it real easy if you're standing in a bald cypress swamp because you know bald cypress are only going to be in a swamp, but it's never like that. It's always usually a community made up of various species, both woody species, shrub sapling layer, and then herbaceous layer. And so you have to, in many cases, it's pretty much done by visualization and making an assessment and then looking up what the criteria is for the plants and establishing that the dominant plant in that community, if it's identified as being facultative wet, then that then keys out to being delineated as a bordering vegetated wetlands, where if you don't have species with that type of characterization, then you're not in a vegetated wetlands if they're identified as being dry loving, but there's a gradation there.
So my point in asking him that is that we started talking about the need to enforce laws and there's that one aspect of the job, the enforcer, the legal aspect. Then we started talking about knowledge of the knowledge of the law that you will be enforcing, the Wetlands Protection Act and the bylaws and knowledge of the resource areas. And then we have this component too, which is a tactile, fundamental ability to identify what's around you and place the former two categories into action on the ground. And this job requires all of it. So I wanted to make sure that you were, aware of that and that was clear, and that you're still, comfortable in that sort of, with that knowledge.
Okay, I look forward to learning more about the local plants and vegetation as a part of the role.
Yeah. There's a lot that you'd have to kind of pick up on, I think. I mean, that's,
Are there courses on that too?
Yes,
Oh, for sure.
yes.
Yeah, you actually can get professional certification or, for delineation of
Yeah.
wetlands.
EWS.
In fact, Brent, how often do you find that, so if we have a development going on and a developer comes in with their plan and they have what they say are the,
The courses.
they've delineated the BVW and whatever. How often do you find that when you go out,
Train you on
that your estimation is not the same as what they're putting on the plan?
plants that are in the.
Okay.
Is
Well,
that-
you know-
No, I'm just wondering, how often do you have to go and say, hey, wait a minute, Charlie?
Well, it's, in one sense, there's a little more finesse to it than that, and, well, like I'm doing right now with checking the wetlands, the ANRAD application from Ted Spiros for Rowley Farms, working with Bill Manuel. So one of the good things about being a conservation agent is you're reviewing other professionals' work.
Yeah.
One of the bad things about that is the other professional can tell if you're blowing smoke or
Right.
not by, number one, what you pick up on when you're out with them. And not that this has anything to do with it, I actually do not have professional certification in wetlands delineation. But I've been doing it for 40 years. And coming from the forestry background, and the first thing out of my mouth to most of them would be like, I really don't know herbaceous vegetation very well, but, don't try to fool me with the woody stuff because I know that real well, being a forester. That being said, though, that's something that kind of comes with knowledge and experience, and I'll admit that when I first started this job, there was a couple of wetland scientists who I contacted, and I actually, on my own volition, I went and shadowed them a couple of times doing wetlands work in other communities just to sort of increase my skill set or whatever. But you also learn when you work with some of these folks, you know exactly who's going to kind of be presenting you the right thing. So that being said, how many times do I change things? Sometimes, a little more than often.
Yeah.
I'll admit, one of the reasons they kind of like me though, so I'm a big guy, and from one fingertip to the other fingertip is 6 feet. And that's my unofficial criteria for moving a wetlands flag, is that I need to be moving it 6 feet. Because, well, you have to remember, now, you're doing a linear review that every so often, there's no official distance, but say every 25 feet, every 30 feet, there might be a wetlands flag. So if I identify one and I say, oh, that doesn't look quite right, but in my mind, if the other flag ahead of it and the other flag behind it are where they should be, moving this thing, and I've heard of commissions that they'll move the flag 1 foot, 2 feet. Well, when you do the 100-foot buffer zone out here, that makes absolutely no difference. So that's why my official criteria is if I move it 6 feet, that does result
Interchange.
in the 100-foot buffer zone line moving a noticeable amount of difference.
I think the other,
And I was gonna say, and I think, again, working with the professionals, and I also will say to them, did you auger the soils here? Because I'll get to a certain spot and I'll just see, and I'm like, visually, it looks to me like the plant community, so I say, okay, let's do a soil auger here, do a high one and a low one, and take a look and see if this actually, so you can ask to check things. But again, you just kind of have to know and be observant that you see that, because sometimes it's extremely clear. Wetlands respond to topography, because in a lot of cases, water won't go uphill.
Yeah.
So, but in Rowley, being coastal plain, there are a lot of areas that do not have a lot of elevational change. So,
Okay.
I don't know whether that's helping you or not. It's kind of like the art of wetlands delineation and throwing the science in there to then substantiate.
And also on the people side of that, we tend to deal with several professionals quite a bit. Would you
Yes.
say?
Yes.
I mean, it's because they're low, they tend to cover this
Well,
area.
yeah, they develop a clientele.
They have a client base, so,
And they got referrals and.
yeah, and so, Brent gets to know those people, and they get to know him, and you can calibrate them as to who you can kind of really, we got certain people come in, most of us know their stuff is pretty good, right? Or they're pretty much on it. Anyways.
Yeah, I'd like to add that your background is so strong in geology and hydrology, which I also enjoy. But what it's missing really is a sense of ecosystems and biology, but sort of a holistic look. And so what Brett has to do and this commission is we aren't just looking at pipes in the ground. We're kind of trying to represent to the community, this is an ecosystem that is protected by the laws. So you have 2/3 of that background because wetlands obviously depend on groundwater and surface water. So you understand that really well. But have you had much experience in biology? And do you like biology? Do you like plants? A lot of people in earth science are not plant people. And plant people don't always like rocks. How do you feel about going into a kind of another field, really? You have a great footprint here, but what Brent is saying is we need you to become kind of a new professional in a field that you really don't have much experience. You're almost there, but not quite. So how do you feel about that, being kind of a biologist? It's different.
Sure. I feel very positively about having the chance to learn about plants and the whole ecosystem. I think it would be less interesting if I just continued on the same straight path and did I'm only going to work with something that I've seen before. So it's a chance to learn something that's closely related to what I know without being the same thing, to learn the plant identification, to learn more about delineating wetlands, and it's all useful for the town for me to learn these things, so I'm interested in all of it.
Yeah, because that's what I think can kind of blow your mind about this job. There's so many requirements, and it doesn't come straight out of school. It's the field work, it's the you already have the analytical part, and Brent deals a lot with maps and GPS and all that, and even ArcGIS sometimes, occasionally. So that will be very, very helpful. But it's that other look as an ecologist, I guess. What I was wondering, if are you able to and interested enough to sort of switch gears and say that's something that I'd be interested in really becoming very, very proficient in.
Yes, able and interested. Yes, I'm also taking a webinar series about dam removal in Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm also learning more about that as a theme in general and the ecosystem impacts of dam removal in Massachusetts.
Very interesting.
Not too many more dams in Raleigh.
That's probably good,
If-
otherwise they
If
might
there are,
remove them.
they're pretty old.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a dam in, is that Georgetown? The Larkin Dam is gonna be coming down, possibly, on the Parker River.
Well, the one in Ipswich too. but-
And Ipswich, yeah,
She's taking theirs down, supposedly.
yeah.
One thing that we haven't really tossed out here yet is that not only do we have inland, we have land on the coast, which is different. It adds to your value to when you talk about plants and in your position and in your youth. boy, you get the coastal part and you get the plant part, you are just one tremendous asset to have. You've got the hydrology part, it's just, I think it's a really good asset. The other thing, talking about biology that we get into, off in that direction, we've got Blanding's turtles. Did I say that right? Is it
Yes.
Blanding's
Yep.
turtles?
Blanding's turtles.
Which would, and that gets directed by, help me here,
National heritage.
in the
Natural.
National Historic.
Natural heritage.
Natural heritage.
Yep.
And they make rulings on that when you come up with the plans on the land and all that. They have, and so sometimes, and you see this you'll see this particularly, you'll see it in Florida, when they build roads down there, they build ways underneath it so that the animals can cross back and forth. So sometimes we require that we have a pathway so that a turtle can walk back and forth.
And not everybody understands that need to protect that little Blanding's turtle. You know, it's expensive,
Sure.
but they're important, and our state also supports it by law. So that's something else that can be a little tricky.
See, Brent, we do listen to you.
But I just think to add, just to make it clear to you too, is that in this job, Brent is still gonna be around.
I
So in
heard.
addition to courses, right? Probably your best course is sitting to your right. And by the way, the other issue is we have an would you call it, what's it, Debbie's role? I mean, she's almost like an office. she's
Oh,
our-
Debbie Cunningham,
Yeah, she's kind of like our
secretary. 'cause it's a
secretary of
union
office,
position,
yeah,
but
and
she's
so,
administrative.
and she also does that for Essex County, or for Essex, for their town. She is gonna be another very valuable asset
Great.
who can educate you. So I would, if it was me and I was in your shoes and I got the job, I would be taking courses, but I would put on a backpack and follow him wherever he goes, and I would then grab my pencil and my computer and sit next to Debbie a lot to just learn. I'm just letting you know, that would be resources that are gonna be available, that you're gonna wanna take advantage of.
Great. Excellent.
Can I ask what size is Wayland? How many people, population?
Small. I want to say 17,000 people.
Really?
Haven't
Well, that's
checked.
Almost 3 times our size, so
Yeah.
We're 5,000.
we're,
Here we're at 6.
6,000.
we're heading towards 7 and 8 pretty fast.
Yeah, you're bigger.
It-
But we probably have a heck of a lot more diversity in terms of the types of lands we have. I mean, totally, you're gonna see everything here. I lived in Lexington for 30 years, and, you know, Lexington has kind of like, I mean, we're more dense than Wayland, but similar type land. And, you know, this is totally a different beast, to say the least.
Very wet.
Very wet.
Plenty of wetlands. to
Yeah,
delineate.
exactly, a lot of wet.
But I was also thinking what you were saying about the wetlands, what I've noticed and what I heard being on this commission, there's not a lot of land left for developing. And so that's a huge pressure right now to take those last scraps. You should see what they do when they're trying to build a house in a wetland. Driveways go like this, you know, there's all kinds of mishmashes and convoluted land development just because they have to follow our law. So that's where the strong will and strong knowledge of that agent is super important, because the pressure is just increasing all the time. And it's very high on the agent and the commission to protect that land properly for this town. That they would have not destroyed, but they would have pushed the wetlands to the very edge of their development plans if there's not people sort of standing blocking it.
Sure. a lot of work to do.
There's a lot of work.
The commission.
Just a separate
So,
Bill.
so, with that, I'll just kind of move this forward as there are, and call for any final questions for, do you go by Abigail or Abby?
Abby is fine, thank you.
Do you have questions?
I don't have any additional questions right now, given that I had the chance to ask some questions at the previous meeting, and I'm sure I'll be in touch as questions come up.
Yeah. Just one final thought, and that is that none of us here are experts. All of us rely on Brent to provide, expert advice and recommendations at every single meeting. You are not expected, were you to get this role, you are not expected to be the expert on day one. However, we will end up depending on you for that kind of advice. So just to make sure that that's clear. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, one more. So now, you've sat through 2 interviews.
I
You've
did.
heard a lot. What's your biggest concern
My biggest concern.
at looking at this job?
I don't think I looked at this job and felt concern.
Okay.
I mostly felt interest. It's not necessarily concerning to work with people to conserve the land. It sounds like it makes a positive impact and like it's valuable work to do. Rather than keeping kicking the question down the road, I'll say that I don't have any serious concerns because I trust in the people here to help identify and acknowledge any areas where I'm going to learn more intensely during the first few months or weeks of the position, and to work with me to fill any knowledge gaps. And it seems that there's a very dedicated team here who will help maintain a certain level of precedence so that I can keep the commission running smoothly without any roadblocks.
If you're offered the position, you already acknowledge that you've got to relocate. How would you go
Yes.
about that relocation, and when could you start your, should it be offered, when could you start?
Sure. So if I am offered the position, yeah, as you said, I would be looking for a rental property in this area, and I would be able to start once I've identified one. So I would be looking for something that I can fill immediately, and I would also use my own network and resources to accelerate that process. So I can't give you an answer in terms of a day, like a landlord will definitely give me a great condo on the 17th or something.
Right.
But I can say that I'm not currently working, so I don't have to give a 2 or 3 months notice. And once I have, a finalized document or contract, then I can feel comfortable
Starting to really-
moving in that
right.
direction.
Is there anything that you expected us to talk about and we didn't?
Anything I expected you to talk about, but that you didn't? I feel that I covered a lot. We covered a lot of topics during the first meeting,
Okay.
so I think that I got like the full breadth of what the position covers just across the 2 meetings fairly well.
Okay.
By the way, just on a little one on his, would you be willing to start even before you found a place? I mean, would you be willing to commute for a while?
I would be willing to start hybridly. I think it would be difficult for me to have an hour and 15-minute
No, I'm just trying to get a,
commute daily. But if you needed me to start like doing some work,
and starting to,
then I could do some work sooner, just not
okay. No, I'm just
full-time
trying to get
immediately.
where your headset's at.
Yeah, like I'm not located in Kansas or something. Yeah, I'm in the neighborhood-ish.
Okay.
Yeah, local enough.
Just finding an apartment, that could take a couple months, so if we
Yeah.
could, I think
Good. I mean,
I think it'll try to shrink that
I
down.
mean, you don't have to live in Raleigh. I mean, I lived in,
Yeah.
so I lived in Metro
Done
West
on
like
your
you
head,
and
no.
moved to Raleigh. But a lot of people here, there's a lot of
Ames-
stuff in Danvers and
Amesbury.
Peabody and
Sure, even
Especially if-
Salem and all that.
especially stuff
yeah.
you may wanna be more, where there's a little more activity than the town of Raleigh. I mean,
I'm not gonna discourage you, but I wouldn't look in Salem.
It's a little far, but
Well, it's very difficult to get in
it's
and
not
out
easy,
of.
yeah.
but Danvers or Peabody.
Danvers, PB,
Yeah.
Amesbury,
Yeah. You never
Georgetown.
know. Or even Newburyport.
Massachusetts.
Newburyport.
I have to, I have to, I've got
Okay.
a trust that I have to win.
Well, if you don't have any questions, any more questions for us, I think that'll do it
Okay.
for our side of things. We appreciate your time, we appreciate you coming in. Thank you very much for your interest in the position, and for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Abby, I forgot to ask, do you have any references that we could check?
Yes, I have several.
Oh, could you provide those with us?
Yes. I don't have them on paper now, but I can.
Window
If you need names and phone numbers, I have them available on my phone, and I can give them to you directly, or I can email them to you.
Email them to Brent when you get it.
Okay.
None of them unfortunately be the National Park Service because Doge fired them all.
Oh, yeah, they're not there anymore.
Check to make
Although
sure.
they may be bringing them back.
I had to put that in, sorry.
That's all right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abby, for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Quite the job.
Maybe I'll go down the line with some good handshakes. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Good luck with the rest of your meeting.
Talk about Australia. My son went to Syracuse.
Connections.
Thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
you. Thank you very much.
Pleasure to meet you.
You as well. Thank you. Alright. I'll exit and allow you to continue. Is that how this works?
That's how
Sure,
that
yeah.
works.
Okay, alright, have a good evening.
Thank you.
You wanna stick
Good
around
night.
for the budget talk?
Do you want to debrief on this first?
Can
Most
you,
fresh?
can you imagine,
Impressive.
Huh?
She's impressive.
from what she
Yeah.
has now, and add some more to it, she would be in
And
the
she lacks some knowledge.
She is-
she can learn.
Let's talk to the group. I
Huh?
think we should talk to the group.
Here. So debrief.
So what were you saying?
This is a.
Oh, well,
Yeah, but we can
Recorded
debrief, in a meeting like this, right? With it being
I think
open.
I'm gonna go down and sit on that side, because
Yeah.
I came here for shit.
I know, but do you debrief in an open meeting?
I would advise against it.
Really?
At least for, yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
I think you may have to.
Well,
Yeah.
we're not-
What was your
I don't-
comment?
I don't, I think we,
We can check on this, but I thought you may have to do your
Yes.
debrief in the meeting now.
Yes.
Yeah,
just
thank
take,
you,
just
Sam.
take a vote, like
Well,
whether
we
we
could-
hire her now, like that level of
Yeah.
debrief?
Well, first of all, you want to
Yes,
talk about
but
what you
before that,
thought.
we want to talk about it.
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, I'll put a line in the sand and then we can, I thought initially I was not in favor of her. I had the two other candidates, the other candidate bailed. The candidate that we interviewed, I thought did a terrible job. Okay, the last one, okay? And to me, took herself right out of with that interview, took herself right out of the, so I'll just that's what I'm feeling. On the other hand, Abby went the other way. Okay, so between first interview and second interview, she did a much better job this time around, in my mind, in being able to my concern had always been with her, did she really home in on what the real question was? Because I think that's a very important skill that Brent has to exhibit when he's dealing with either the public or contractors or whatever, is to find out, hey, what is their real concern? What's the real issue? So when they're asking a question, you gotta find out what's the real question that they're asking and get to it. So I thought she did a much better job at this time. And so anyways, that's my 2 cents. So
My impression is that she went to what I'll call a pretty, if not very good school in a field that isn't exactly aligned with it. But I will remind you that soil is crushed stone.
That's right.
So I had geology first, and then I had agronomy, which is soil science. You had to take the geology first. She's had the geology. She is in a situation where I don't think she's going to find it easy to find jobs the way you and I might find, because we can go out to a business. I mean, I was an accountant, so I could go out to any business. But beyond that, my real question in this interview was, could she learn? And she appears to be very much learning oriented. So
Absolutely.
that's
When
my
you go
2 cents
through
worth.
6 years of learning, she has the ability, and she's progressed each year. She has the ability to learn.
Yeah, agreed.
I just give her credit for having gone out to California and living with all those
To do what?
I haven't gone to school in California and lived with all those Californians.
Well, I can understand that.
She also admitted she's taken a webinar on the
She should, yeah.
Dams.
but she was taking one on the
Dam
dams.
building.
Dam
And
removal.
that was, it wasn't forced or suggested, it was something
Yeah.
she's doing on
That's-
her own to
that's right.
broaden her own
That's right.
horizons. So she's doing something on her own when she's not forced. If she's asked to do something to broaden her horizons for the role, she should have no problem with it.
Yeah.
I think my concern is what you all were bringing up, is that time frame of the job starts and you're running pretty fast. Maybe you're jogging pretty fast. You're not running. You'll be running pretty soon, and you need to be here, on the
The
job.
role, the position's open.
Yeah.
Well,
We need to.
yeah, that may be easy to solve. But first we have to find out if she wants a job.
Yeah,
Or if we're going to continue looking,
Yeah.
because
What was
there's
that, Dan?
nothing to say that we can't continue looking.
Right,
Oh,
but it's gonna get very hard for us as a board to continue.
I guess my question would be, would there be a reason that you wouldn't offer her the job?
I like the old saying, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush.
I think I think our biggest issue could be is how long she'll stay in the end.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because
oh,
she's gonna learn,
I'd agree with that too.
I think she's gonna jump, I think she has the ability to jump in, go 100 miles an hour, work with Brent, and see where it takes her. I mean, this is her first real job
Yeah.
after college, right?
Yep.
So you probably have her for, maybe for,
She-
who knows, for 3 years, 4 years.
She may, the Merrimack Valley, whatever you call that group, they probably love to have her.
Yep.
Because she's got so many talents. We bias a lot of what we look at because of what we have and how you've gone through business and you've gone through business.
Mhm.
So we temper that up here when we're talking to an individual like that. And a vegetation is what it needs. That's what children should probably learn to get. Gosh, there was a night and day difference between last week and this girl here.
Oh, yeah, the other girl.
Just
just went-
absolutely,
she-
yeah,
Other girl came in the first meeting, she was here. They were pretty close, but I'm telling you, the other girl went downhill and
yeah.
she went up.
Well, I think she's got a bit of experience on the added time not earning anything. And I was gonna say something else, but
Could I pose a scenario? So if you were to offer her the position, but she couldn't necessarily start immediately because geographically she's not close
Yeah.
enough by.
Yeah,
She did mention the possibility of hybrid. Is there some training that she could do to prep her for the role while she's in the process of relocating? So she,
I'm shaking my head because I can't think of any.
Well,
It's like-
besides those courses,
Yeah,
Brent, I would think if she hybrided it, if she could be up here 2 days a week,
I was just thinking that.
how much are you gonna be around over the next month and a half? You're gonna be in 1 day a week, besides your other job, besides the 5-hour thing?
Well, I was trying not to get too, trying to.
retirement
what's the
means
word?
retirement.
Well,
Yeah,
yes.
you're gonna retire.
I've been trying for disengagement, and so far, disengagement looks like it's amounting to like a day plus. But I haven't been using the 5 hours. The 5 hours have been in with that.
Yeah, I would suggest that until she's up to
I mean,
probably.
I would think with her that we would want to do some shadow.
Until,
big-
Yeah,
until,
absolutely.
until she is,
yeah,
until whoever this person is that comes into, I'm not saying it's gonna be her, whoever comes into in this role, I would expect that those 5 hours go almost entirely to bringing that person up to
Yeah.
up to speed,
Yeah.
until they're 50% minimum.
Do we have any, our customers, okay, there's a lady from Drake who we talk to a lot. Are there any of our customers who could, who she could shadow with? That might sound corny as hell, but,
you
But-
mean the,
huh?
you mean the,
Developers or?
Huh?
It's kind of a
Wetlands.
conflict.
The wetland scientist, I
Wetland
think.
scientist,
Yeah, that's the thing
Yeah,
we're talking
wetland
about.
scientist,
yeah,
That might be a tough
She
one.
can, she's perfectly free to go to the Wayland Conservation Commission and,
you know, I wanted to say that, yeah, and it's not just Wayland, I mean, she's got Sudbury there, she's got 2 very
yeah.
expensive towns.
and wet,
Huh?
and very wet towns too.
Yeah,
pretty
yes, Assabet River goes through there, yeah. She could do that.
So,
You know,
at this point, do we wanna say, I think we all agree that the candidate for last week is off the table.
Yep,
Is
yes,
that fair?
I think it is.
Okay.
yes.
So now we're down to taking action on this person. And so the question is, do we? You wanna take a straw vote? Who's willing to hire her?
Well,
Oh, I am.
yeah, I am, but I just want to qualify a little bit. I guess my concerns are still, we're asking Brent, I think a little more than he expected in terms of hiring, in terms of your input.
You mean
wanna-
her being able to shadow him?
Yes, and.
So you wanna comment on
And
that?
take a job. So I'm not sure how you're feeling, Brent, about having somebody who really needs to,
I don't want to retire and see the house that Jack built fall down.
okay, so that's important.
It's good to know.
Yes, it's good to know. I think that was the concern I had.
Yeah,
Because
So
she,
you're willing to put in time on the short term, being the next couple months, to get this person.
But budget-wise, it's confined to,
5 hours a
once you
week,
get
yeah.
a person in that position,
yeah,
they get the 35 hours.
Yeah.
I just have 5 hours.
That's why I
Yeah.
said, those 5 hours go all to
Yeah, yeah.
this whoever is training.
What she could do, though, is if we offered her the job and she said she couldn't start for a month and a half because of the ability of her not being able to be here, she could come and shadow you if you're still putting in an additional 8 hours. She could shadow you, right? As a non-official
Right,
employee.
well, again, right now, I'm in the position of temporary agent and the land
Yeah.
stewardship manager, so technically, I guess I've got the 40 hours.
yeah, I
the
understand
40
this business
hours I can pull
administration
from.
side on that too. you know, he's actually retired, he's at 5 hours. How does the town say, you know, Brent, we need this person done, what can we do for you to get it done?
No, well, they're actually paying, he's working hours outside that 5 hours right now.
Yeah, yeah,
And he can only work up to so many hours a week.
okay,
So, and that's how we're getting by, that's our life support system right now,
Yeah.
right? And so what could happen if we're saying, okay, she said what she might be willing to do to help herself get up to speed is if she was offered the job, he could still be working on that 8 hour, 10 hour, not the 5 hour thing, but,
yeah,
and she could come up and shadow him as a private citizen, right? Knowing she's gonna have the job, but not being paid for it. Could, I'm not saying that could happen,
Yeah.
but
So she could be like an
At
intern.
what point does she go on the payroll?
as soon as she feels that she's
Okay, because
gonna
I
be
wouldn't want her
permanent.
driving back and forth
Yeah.
from Wheel and not getting gas in her tank.
No, once she gets her housing worked out and all that. But I mean, these are all things we'd have to talk about later, right? But I guess the bigger issue is do we wanna hire her?
I think the positives outweigh the negatives, and the negatives is the grand biology that we talked about. How do you feel?
Well, I liked her. I don't have any problem with her. I think that she could, you know, step into the role, and with some, I agree, I felt more positive about her than I did the previous applicant. I think she could step into the role, and hey, I don't think we're gonna find someone who doesn't have to learn a lot.
I agree with that, yeah.
So she definitely, I think, presents as someone who is capable and demonstrated able to learn. If I have any concern, it is I worry about the continued interest. I think I don't know that that it's going to hold her interest for very long. That's my biggest concern.
I think her interest level isn't my question. It's her desire to do what she originally trained in.
That you went out to California to become a geologist.
And she went to Syracuse, which is
Went to
also
Syracuse.
a top school
But,
for that.
yeah.
Yeah, and so that was a huge golden accomplishment that she has.
I guess I'm saying I'm willing to,
It can change.
yeah, I'm willing to take a chance on that.
Maybe going through this process again in 2 years.
But I wouldn't be surprised. if-
I wouldn't be
But
surprised.
we'll learn from it. If that's the case.
Yeah.
So we're fortunate that Brent, when he took this on, he sat back and he learned. He learned it all. It's hard to find people like that. It's hard to find people like that in general today.
Yeah, let me ask Brent a question. We are, whoever we decide upon, we have to advance one or two, or do we have to advance anybody towards the BOS, or just, we just
No.
pick one and they rubber stamp it?
My understanding was
Yes.
that they would
It's up to
support
us. It's
whatever.
all up to us. Okay.
Whatever
All right.
decision the commission made.
All right, then, we need a motion then to offer Abby the job.
I'll make a motion to offer Abby a
Second.
job.
We have a motion made and seconded, all in favor? Aye.
Nice. Now, we have to find her an apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody know one?
You got an extra bedroom in your house?
The 35 hours a week, there's
I know
no
you do.
saying she has to do 5 7-hour days, right? She could do 3 10-hour
No,
days.
she can do 4.
4,
14-hour
He
days?
does 410.
there you go.
So
So
she would do 4, whatever, to get to 35.
But I'm saying to limit her commuting time and to immerse her into this position quickly, and maybe we can lead her towards longer days initially
Yeah,
to limit her commute time and to really
Yeah, I mean, I would wanna, I would
get
wanna
her
see,
feet wet.
I would wanna see some, I'd wanna see some initiative on her part. You know, I would be uncomfortable if, she didn't, make some sort of
Effort.
to get up here.
I was a little disappointed with that response, that
Um,
she didn't wanna drive this for an hour.
Yeah.
It's not that far, an hour and
It's
15
an hour's
minutes. How
not
many,
that far.
how many long
it's,
commutes people are
it's a
doing?
bitch of a drive though, it
But she
really
has,
is. Having done it.
she's never done it, yeah, she's never had to
40 years.
commute.
But no.
You know,
Depends on
whatever,
how you
we'll
drive.
deal
We'll
with
deal
that.
with that bridge when we.
That was interesting.
All right. So we have this other matter about the budget we have to get through, right?
Probably
Right.
do is go out.
And-
It goes from Wayland to one twenty.
And it's a dual matter because
I used to.
you also need the authorization for the notice of intent monies in either scenario, because we've always provided 6 hours of Debbie's 16 hours funded from the notice of intent monies, which in either scenario, that still needs to happen.
Absolutely.
So there's a letter, and I think the draft of the letter was put in to make last page. Yeah, that has to be submitted to the Board of Selectmen.
I never ran into traffic.
You gotta submit both, right? Based on their,
Yeah.
their direction, they told
No,
you.
yeah.
You put in.
Either way, and what it did,
Second to last
because
page, Dan,
the
I'm sorry.
union is still subject to negotiation, so that's even unclear
Sorry.
which way it's
But you
gonna
did
go.
include the
Looking at
fact
this
that it's a
letter.
new agent, right? I saw that, that's a different
Second
wage in there.
page.
Yes. Well, yeah, actually, so the scenario, even with the 2% increase, actually
There's a
has
decrease.
a decrease.
Yeah, that's what I
And
was.
I was
wondering if you
both
were
have a
gonna-
decrease
Yeah,
because
yeah,
This is
it's.
the new agent.
35 hours is at
Back in-
Lower.
grade 9, step
Yeah.
1, and
Second
not
to
step
last page
whatever,
of these budgets.
9.
The second to last page,
Yeah, okay.
So basically, did you hold everything else plus or minus
So
flat?
it's this page,
Oh, yeah.
budget B.
That was the direction, right?
Well, that was
Did you actually
what I
look at
was
that?
told, I've
Yeah, that's
always
what I
been
thought.
told to just hold the line on.
I saw it online and.
Okay, so let's just review real quick. Budget A is, follows the following guidelines according to this memo from the,
So that's a
from
different,
WE. Okay, budget A, level fund department expense budgets. However, departments needing operational increases must clearly identify the reason why the increase is needed. The request must be submitted on the issues and options form referenced below. That doesn't apply to us.
Correct.
Yep. Please attach supporting documentation, again, doesn't apply to us. Wages, A, budget, non-union, factor a tentative 2% cost of living increase. Please follow fiscal year 26 non-union compensation schedule. Please use the current non-union fiscal 24 longevity schedule for budgeting purposes pending any change to it for fiscal year 26. Union employees, this part applies to Debbie, right?
Right.
Yes.
The town will be in negotiations for successor agreements with AFSCME, Teamsters, and MCOP for fiscal year 26. Please use employees' current rates and adjust for step increases based on the fiscal year 25 schedule for employees who receive longevity payments. Follow longevity schedules in the collective bargaining agreements. Okay, so budget A. This is the level funded, no change. It is a functional decrease because of the change in hours for the non-union position. The union position Debbie's to be at a salary to be negotiated, according to these agreements, right? We got all that right?
But her job will not, nothing's gonna change with her.
And we'll get to that in just a second. Also, as part of same budget A, recommending a 6 of the 16 hours per week position to be funded by, this is for Debbie's position, to be funded by the NOI fees utilized for administrative activities directly related to the Wetlands Protection Act. Okay. Good summary there on budget A? All right, budget B.
Can I ask one question on A?
Yeah.
Are you gonna make it very clear to who's getting this, that the reason we're going down
Oh, this is B.
percentage rate
Huh?
is
Oh, it's attached to this.
because of the change in the,
Got it.
I saw it, it's pretty clear. I mean, it
okay,
was-
so I don't know if there's a, you wanna have a note there.
No, there was, I saw it, where was it?
Yeah, where's
It was,
the note?
it was 35 hours, I saw it marked.
Oh,
Yeah, right here, page two.
Yeah,
I think it's on the
Contract
second,
Okay,
sheet.
Stewardship, land management 5,
Fine.
total, 64,
I put that on
357.
page one, but anyways.
All right, so budget A includes the 2% cost of living increase. Budget B is level funded. We're reading again from the memo from Debbie Egan. Level fund, budget regarding expenses of budget B. Level fund department expense budgets, however, departments who need operationally increase only fixed costs such as contracts, utilities, and fuel must clearly explain the reason for the increases. Same wordage as in expenses budget A. Wages, budget B. Non-union, the budget will not include the cost of living increase for non-union employees. Please use employees' current rates and adjust for step increases based on fiscal year 25 non-union compensation schedule. Please use current non-union fiscal year 24 longevity schedule for budgeting purposes. Union employees, the town will be in negotiations for successor agreements with AFSCME, Teamsters, MCOP, etc. Fiscal year 26, please use employees' current rates and adjust for step increases based on the fiscal year 25 schedule, same language as in budget A. Okay, so budget B is level funded, no change, no cost of living increase. With the, for the non-union employees, the conservation agent and the stewardship, the land steward, with the union employee Debbie to be in a contract negotiation
With the union.
with the union. Same consideration regarding the funding of her position, with 6 of the 16 hours per week being funded directly from notice of intent filings related to administrative activities for the Wetlands Protection Act. Anybody have any questions on these budgets? Let's see, let's just talk numbers here. We're talking budget A, this is with the cost of living increase.
186.
We are, let's see, at 55,303 decimal 29 for the Concom agent's salary, and 9054 decimal 09 for the stewardship land manager's salary, both non-union. 10,544.05 for the Concom secretary, with some portion of that being funded by the notice of intent filing fees. Okay,
Expenses.
what was that again?
Well, the total is over here on page one, so your total is the 84,233,
84,223.
which represents a minus 8.6 versus the other one, which is 84,220, or the 75, I'm sorry, one is 76,952.
76,952.
And then the 75,697, which is a 10, minus 10%.
Exactly.
decrease.
Yeah,
So I,
because,
okay.
The only variable here is I don't know what may happen with union negotiations, and I really don't know whether
I don't
there
think
would
we
be
can-
any step
Yeah, you
increase
can't.
involved
Yeah.
with,
You can't,
with Debbie Cunningham's salary, so.
can't anticipate.
Well, Brent, the person we hired doesn't come in at the pay rate that you're getting,
And he's
That's
taking
what
that in
this-
there.
That's what this is being
He's
budgeted.
pulled it, that's why we got the big
which
decrease.
is what you, which you,
This is being budgeted at step one for the agent.
oh, okay,
He's already taken care of that.
okay.
That's why you got a big decrease. The town is gonna be smiling at the Concom.
Well, yeah, I don't,
Yeah, I think so.
they need a lot more than.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Little bit we're
$1,000.
giving them with the-
But they're not gonna be, you're not gonna be on the whooping
Well, they
post.
should, yeah, I mean, there shouldn't be shouldn't be any thumb screws applied.
Exactly.
So I guess, is the issue really Debbie's salary, that we either let the union negotiate or we give her the increase? What's
You
the?
can't.
No,
You
we
can't.
don't,
We have no clue.
we have no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's what I'm saying. So A versus B, what's the,
No,
Basically-
all I'm saying is supposedly the only variable that I could possibly anticipate at this point in time would be with Debbie Cunningham. If something occurs in the union negotiations
Yeah.
and her salary is given a step increase or something.
okay,
I
so,
can't
So
anticipate
the
that.
question, the question is, do we want to submit a budget that includes a 2% cost of living increase for non-union positions?
and
Well,
that
we're
non-union
supposed
would
to-
be the agent.
Well, we're being
asked to,
as near as I can tell, we're being asked to.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta,
And this is gonna be up to higher
and then they're gonna try to negotiate that.
scrutiny. I-
Oh, exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
so,
I like the cost of living increase.
and, exactly. That sounds like a motion to submit budget A.
Well, you gotta submit both, right?
let's submit both.
Yeah, believe me.
You got
I
it, you gotta
submit
submit
both
both.
to give
That's what
them.
they're
And they make the choice.
So what are we doing here?
Exactly, but
We're just reviewing to make sure that,
Okay.
just looking at it.
looking at it, you got it.
Here,
What the hell?
I'm already
You
late.
got it.
I'm already late, so I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
All right.
No, don't make a motion to adjourn, make a motion to approve submittal of budget A and budget B.
So that's all we can
And
submit, look like.
and authorize the chairman to submit to the selectmen a request for $6,500 out of the NOI funds to contribute towards the 6 hours of Miss Cunningham.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
I,
That's for the vote.
Our hands are tied.
Okay. So there wasn't a decision that we had to make, we just looked at it.
we're just pretty faces.
Well, at least we got something going for us.
All right, now we need a motion to adjourn.
That's all that's in there. Nate?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's go.